Jen Ferron, Robyn Glaser, Nancy Meier, three pioneers in the Patriots franchise, three women who have dedicated the majority, if not all, of their careers to the Kraft Group, three individuals who have paved the way for women in sports like myself. Thank you all so much for joining me in honor of International Women's Day.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We're excited to be here.
I'd love to start by just going around, and so each of you can share your title and kind of what you're responsible for here. And I think we'll start with Nancy.
Nancy Meier. I work with the New England Patriots, the football side of Kraft Group. My daily responsibilities, which vary throughout the year because football season and off season will change what we're doing, but I work in player personnel, which affects any transactions that we have on our roster, from the draft right on through training camp, and then those most difficult cuts that come at the end of training camp. And our department handles those releases. So that's interacting with players when they're first coming into the building, which is very joyful. And then, unfortunately, oftentimes the last person that they talk to on their way out when they're returning to their families or hopefully to another team. In addition to that, I handle travel for our scouting department, and again, if a player is coming in or out, and I enjoy that part of it a lot. It's and gosh, there's just so many different things that come up through the year. I feel a little stunted by this question, but anyway, I'm in the female within our player personnel department and have been there for, I believe I'm going into my 47th or 48th season. So I've been part of the New England Patriots for all of our ownerships, many head coaches. I'm not exactly sure where it began with Chuck Fairbanks and up until Coach Belichick, which we're all very fortunate to be together for the number of years we have been, because it brings so much stability to our organization. And I'll say, you can go through our football department, some of the coaches and football staff, and oftentimes you'll run into people that have been here for 17 years, 14 years, 8 years, and I think that really helps. Like, both of you have been here a long time too. And so we've shared the joys of going to Super Bowls and championships, and we've shared the gut-wrenching feeling of a loss here and there. But hopefully the good times have outweighed the bad by a lot.
How about you, Robyn?
I can confirm that Miss Nancy is absolutely beloved by everyone on the football team, from player to coach to staff member.
Thank
and
you,
me.
Robyn.
So I'm Robyn Glaser. I have a variety of roles here. In my non-football role, I am the Senior Vice President of Business Affairs for the Kraft Group, and that takes me across all of the Kraft Group businesses in various capacities. I also am a personal advisor to the family, so some of my work reflects that. And then on the football side, I came in now 17 seasons ago as the football lawyer, but that has since expanded to the Chief Administrative Officer of football. And what that means is I support a lot of the non-football business, that's what we call it, of football. So I'm not in the trenches with Nancy with transactions and actual football systems, but the business of football that surrounds the player evaluation and contracts like that, that include finance, HR, IT, legal, NFL relations, compliance, and a variety of other topics.
The list is long, Robyn, I'll tell you.
The list is long for both of you.
Yeah.
Jen, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Jen Ferron. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Kraft Sports and Entertainment. I started with the organization about 26 seasons ago And when I started here, I actually originally was working for the New England Revolution, which is our professional soccer team. I transitioned and parlayed some of my experience doing events and promotions and advertising with the soccer team into the role that I have today with the Patriots, and I get to work alongside Nancy and Robyn. I would describe the role that I have as being one in which it's very external facing. So we have a lot of operational roles here, but the role that I have in overseeing all of marketing is really one in which we engage with all of our fans and our customers. I have the great privilege of working on a lot of the stuff that we do in the community through our philanthropic work, all of the content that we create and generate for our fans, working with our corporate partners and activating and bringing to life their sponsorships and all of the deliverables that we have for them, and then really overseeing some of our retail and member services opportunities.
Oh, that's a long list of things that you're doing as well, Jen. Jen, I can't help but think when I was first here with the New England Patriots, a marketing department may have been one person and, just enough to generate some signage around the stadium and, which was probably cigarettes and liquor back then. Would probably come a long way with our sponsorships. However, was it not the greatest marketing strategy renaming the New England Patriots from Boston Patriots and incorporating all of the New England states in our fan base?
Yeah, I mean, I love, Nancy, that you even think about that, as somebody who's on the football side of the business, thinking about that and saying sports has always been very localized. And, 40, 50 years ago, it was really about the city that a team played within. And so the ability for us as a brand to extend beyond just Boston and think about ourselves as stewards of a region in 6 New England states and all of the great work that we can do. And now we've not only extended that beyond the New England area, but, we're clearly a national and global brand. And a lot of what we do today really has taken us beyond just this region and brought us to other countries, in fact.
It's a testament to you and women all throughout this department, really. But
I think it's important to note that the Kraft Group is made up of many different organizations, the largest employer of which is Kraft Sports and Entertainment. And Jen, in addition to being the CMO, she also co-leads that department, that organization. And it's amazing to have a woman in such a senior leadership role for one of our biggest businesses. I take a lot of pride in it, and it's her.
I think, but just the fact that the three of us are sitting here today and, sharing our stories, and we've worked so closely together and yet in some ways distantly, right? But yet we each have this really, I think, fond appreciation for the roles that we each bring and what we do and the expertise and the years of experience and how we deliver that on behalf of the Kraft family and the team to all of the different constituents. Nancy deals almost exclusively with a lot of internal constituents, right? She talked about the coaches and the players and in some cases seeing them the last time that they leave this building, right? That's who they remember when they walk out the door. She is an incredible steward of this organization. And Robyn is working on contracts for these players as they're coming on board. And my team and I are working on sort of all of the experiential opportunities that we have. And so our fans, our players, our employees, we love what we do, I think for many reasons, but some of it is because it is so hyper emotional and it feels like you have a real connection to the team and the product.
I love hearing about just the respect and admiration you have for each other. I think that really speaks to the culture we have here. And I mean, it's a great segue into my next question, which is, what does it take for the three of you to remain loyal to one employer for as long as each of you have? How have you felt empowered as women and professionals by the Kraft Group?
Anybody want to start?
Me first. For me, what keeps me inspired is the variety of work that I do, and that I have multiple different organizations here that I work with or for, and so that allows me to interact with a very broad group of individuals. Part of I am I'm very honored to work for Robert and Jonathan and Danny and Josh and the family and the organization. And I take a lot of pride in that. I feel like I wear the Glaser brand on my back, but also the Kraft brand on my back, and I take that very seriously. But I'm really inspired by the people around me, whether they are other women, some of the extraordinary men that we get to work with, whether they have been here for a very long time, whether they have newly entered. I really take a lot of, I get a lot of energy and inspiration from the people around me. So that's what's kept me here.
Yeah, I mean, Robyn hit the, so many important points. I think, when we started or when I started, it's a family-owned business. And I think that really the essence of, and Robyn, referenced Robert and Jonathan, Danny and Josh, like it truly does feel like a family here. And with that, there's all kinds of idiosyncrasies of, being part of a family. But I think that that pride, that ownership, that, dedication to sort of always exceeding, but being also supported when maybe you fail, right? Because we're not always perfect. Things don't always go the way that they need to. But knowing that you have people in your corner who have been through the trenches and are willing to be there alongside you and to pick you up and to push you forward. When we're celebrating championships, that's easy. And when we're not, it's a little bit more difficult. So I think we've seen enough, challenging days that it really makes us, I think, appreciate the support that we have for one another and the team that we have here. There is a lot of continuity. Nancy's gone through, as she mentioned, so many coaching changes, but yet there is a thread of stability in so much of that. And that's important.
Absolutely. And I think that we're fortunate as women to be part of this, and there are lots of other women in our Patriot Kraft Sports community that are doing wonderful things as well. I think we just happen to be three representing lots of girls who have come into professional football that really didn't have roles years ago. And the roles were really more defined towards initially a secretary and then an administrative assistant. And now it's just wonderful that women are being recognized of the capabilities for roles that have more importance, more input into the success. And like both Robyn and Jen have said, we've had the stability of ownership for such a long time. And we're very fortunate to be in our hallways and actually interact with our ownership. I mean, I don't think every NFL team would say they would really know personally their ownership. And we are recognized by them and spoken directly and have conversations. And I think that really generates a great feel for being part of what we have here. And it does. It brings great pride. And I've said it before, but when you drive in here every day and have the opportunity to look at this magnificent stadium and the shops and Patriot Place, I mean, how great is it?
It's pretty great.
It's amazing, too, that you still feel that sentiment after all this time. I mean, you've truly seen it all. 4 ownership groups, 9 coaching staffs, all 6 Super Bowls.
All 6 Super Bowl victories.
Yeah.
She's seen a lot of Super
more
Bowls.
Super Bowls than that. But you spoke to a little bit about how much your career has evolved here. What role did you start out in all those years ago in the scouting department?
Well, this is a little bit of a dinosaur of an answer because there seriously was not computers, and I came in here to type and scouting reports, and that's really what I feel like is my foundation of learning about football. I was so young at the time, and you still scouts went on the road and hand wrote scouting reports, put them in an envelope and mailed them to the office. I mean, it's unheard of now. we don't even write letters much anymore. You email but that was how the early days were. And, by repetition of typing scouting reports and filing about a running back or a defensive lineman or a quarterback and what their skill set is and their size, and, you learn the game. Not that I could evaluate a player. I don't want to, misrepresent.
But to hear Nancy say that, right, and to be in the role as long as she has means she didn't just do the job of, typing the scouting report and transcribing it from written word into something else. Like she learned, she understands the game of football. She truly does know when we're looking for somebody in a certain position. And I think that's part of what each of us would say when you're in a new role or at an organization, right? Take every opportunity that you're given and put as much into it as you can. It doesn't matter if you're a female or a male, just that notion of I'm here, I have a job to do, I can learn while I'm doing it, I have something more to contribute. Nancy's been here an incredibly long time, but it's not because she just, did the one thing she was asked to do. Along the way, she's absorbed so many other things. The same thing for Robyn. If we just sat back and said, I'm happy with the job, I'm content with what I do, I don't think any of the three of us would be sitting here talking to you today. Right. I do think it is really, a demonstration of sort of a willingness to take on more and do as much as possible and learn and continue to learn and grow as our roles have evolved. Because each one of us is doing a job that is very, very different than the one we were brought here to do however long ago.
Yeah, exactly. I had the same question for both of you. Just what did you start off here doing? And then what did it take from within to climb to the places you both have reached?
As we sit here, we have to acknowledge that on the business side of sports, you'll see, no one is Jen Ferron, but you'll see replications of Jen Ferron on the business side of sports. There's a lot of women who have achieved very senior level marketing roles, very senior level business roles. In the football per se, when we're making this, you can just be Googling alongside us. And, there's still the rise of a female presence in a football system per se. Nancy, no one will ever be Nancy Meier. We talk about the winningest coach and, that Bill, everyone, says Bill is pursuing, the Don Shula record. No one will ever, we have a record holder here in our own building in Nancy Meier, and no one will ever match her. But yeah, there's still a lot of work to do on the football side. And, as I described, what I do here, I was always brought in to, it was originally discussed as, Robert, Jonathan, Dan, and Josh get a lot of stuff on their desk, and oftentimes they don't know where to put it. And so the idea was that they would put it on my desk and I would move forward. So a lot of my colleagues around here were like, and you are, and you're involved, why? But it was more because whatever was on their desk and came to mine, that's what I did. And I've tried to, put myself here as a collaborator, as a business partner in all respects, and not as someone who's coming in to drive. I always say I like to drive, but I want to be one set of hands on the steering wheel with others. And I think that approach has allowed me to gain trust of my colleagues so that they do view me as a business partner. So if all of a sudden I appear on a deal that they're doing or in a place that they wouldn't expect me, they say, oh, okay, it's Robyn. She's going to help us, be successful. On the football side, I originally came in, I had not practiced law in many years. I had zero interest in being a lawyer. I still have no interest in being a lawyer. But what they needed at the time was a football lawyer. And I said to John, this is true words. I have not watched a full professional football game in my life. I don't know anything about football. If any other TV show on TV, I'm watching over football. That's still the case unless it's the Patriots, but we can talk about that later. But I knew nothing. And Jonathan said, can you close deals? And I said, I can do that in my sleep. And he said, that's what we need. We need someone who can, be a thoughtful, club partner, a thoughtful league partner, and help us do good work here. And I said, I can do that. He said, I'll teach you football. Most of the football has been osmosis, watching it, listening to it on the radio, so I had to envision it. So I became the lawyer for the football team. That's not real law for any lawyers out there. There's a collective bargaining agreement, and so it's interpreting an existing contract and fighting over words. But I did do, player contracts and other legal type things. But as I got smarter and while there are ceilings around all of us, male, female, whatever, and while there are things that traditionally are not available, I just pay no mind to it. I just do good work. I try to do good work. I make
do great work.
And I try to build a case for myself for getting the next one, getting the next project, being able to participate in the next thing. And the Krafts have been excellent at, kind of seeing that in me and creating those opportunities for me. So, so that's how I have grown my career and how I've done it in an industry that, we just have to be very honest, is still building its roster of females.
Mm-hmm. A lot of work to be done, as you mentioned. I'm wondering if any of you can think of a time in your career where you felt discouraged or disrespected in a way that you probably maybe wouldn't have if you were a man, and kind of how you navigate those situations throughout the course of your careers.
I'd probably say no. I feel like I've had tremendous support, even though we're talking about an incredible amount of years. But I feel like with coaches and players and equipment managers and trainers, and it takes a village to put a game on the field every week. And I don't think I've ever really felt as though I wasn't highly regarded in whatever role I've had. And I think that that's a real tribute to the New England Patriots, because I don't believe it's the same everywhere. And the hires that we've always had here, even prior to Coach Belichick and the staff that's come with him. But it's just been a great journey. And it's always been respectful, as it should be. As it should be anytime any one of us walk anywhere in this building. You should.
Yeah, I'd say I think I've probably experienced it more outside of the building as opposed to inside. I think that, Robyn and I have probably had a lot of opportunities where we, in many cases, have been one of the only women in a room at a meeting, with all men, whether that's at a league meeting or a business meeting. And I think that I've often taken the approach of, I've, or at least early in my career, I tried to do a lot more listening than talking. And so I wasn't always, somebody that maybe spoke up as much or had an opinion at a league session. Because I always felt like sometimes when the people in the room spoke, I didn't really hear they didn't really sound like they were saying anything. They were talking, but they weren't necessarily, didn't feel like they were moving the needle, or it didn't feel like it was additive. But I would say, I think in feeling sort of disrespect, maybe less disrespect, but sort of dismissed might be a better adjective. But I do think that came really more from, externally in sort of affiliations that existed along the way, as opposed to in the building. In the building, I do feel similar to Nancy, where I've done good work, I've worked hard, I've demonstrated that I have, capabilities, and I've been, surrounded by amazing people. But I feel like here, anyway, I do think that we have a really solid
But it's being a pioneer in those meetings. And one woman became two and became three. And it's because, you could hold your own in those meetings. And I think, life in general is, when you have gatherings, it's just men tend to, gather with men, women tend to gather with women. I think it's part of the natural thing. And, but yet still to be able to come together and feel like you can hold your own and like that, you ladies went to meetings as a one, and you've, you've been able to have more women come into these roles.
Right. I've always been in male-dominated industries. So when I started my career and I actually wanted to be a lawyer, I was a corporate lawyer in New York in M&As and securities, and there was one female partner at the time. And I have so much in my head that it's hard for me to have strong images or memories. But I do remember a meeting where she got up and bragged about the fact that she didn't go to her kids' recitals or whatever because she just focused on being a partner. And I was like, I knew even at that time that was just wrong. That was just bad. And I do have the experiences of early in those days, going to close a deal in Los Angeles and, having the male client say, "Oh, Robyn, we're going to go down and finish the deal. You stay up here and watch the bags." And that happened once because I went to the partner and I said, oh no, 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 no. And thankfully it was a male partner and he said, oh no, 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 no. And he would, from then on, he was very cognizant of it. I have had the benefit of having really the good fortune of having a lot of men older than me, younger than me, black, brown, white, straight, gay, a lot of men in my life who have been such great advocates and allies and all of that. But I do have those experiences. And I think that mostly, and I also try to have an open door policy and try to be a resource and support to a lot of the young people in our organization that include both men and women. But the women, the most common thing that I hear is that they feel voiceless. And I understand that because, again, this industry, even with such strong people on the business side and such strong people, in football itself, is very male dominated. And in some ways, on the football side, it should be male dominated. There's a lot of, there are men on the field. It's not a mixed group on the field. But, there are positions that women could be very effective in. But this voicelessness that I hear often, and I try to lift and encourage and inspire. And I think that where I've come to is no one would ever describe Robyn Glaser as voiceless. In league meetings, across the league, what I always get are, messages from, men and women, texting me saying, I wish I had said that, or thank you for saying what we're all thinking, or whatever. So, and I do that in part because, I really have this theory that I'm here to plant seeds of trees, the shade of which I'll sit under for a short period of time, but I'm really creating and growing those trees for you, for the next generation of women. There's women that are here in this room with us right now, and I'm looking at them, and that's who I'm doing it for. And that's, in part, what I wake up for and what I come, I sprint into this building every day because that's on my mind. And those trees, planting those seeds and building those trees, is what I want to do.
And I've seen Robyn do that 1,000 times. And I think it is incredibly important to have that sort of support within the walls where you come to work every day. And sometimes it's just a safety net for somebody to talk to. Sometimes it's, professional advice. But oftentimes, and I liked what you said, which is like just planting the seeds, like it's just, a lot of it's just idea generation, right? Like if I say this thing, maybe you'll respond this way. If I introduce this concept, maybe you'll take the concept and pivot it. And I think that it's that willingness to share, as Robyn so often does, her experience, her background, her expertise with others, and to let them sort of find their voices along the way.
That being said, all the experience you ladies have, how have you seen the workplace evolve for women who are in the sports industry?
I mean, I see.
I think it's still growing.
It's still growing.
We've still got a ways to go.
Yes, but I do think, I see women like Jen. I see women like Nancy. I see there are other women that we're not mentioning here that are also doing the same, that are really forging pathways and improving the experience for women in general. And I see that outside of our organization, and I see that, outside of our own industry. And I get very excited about it. Whether it's a woman doing it, or I get particularly excited about it when a man is paving the way for females.
But I do think because we're in such a male-dominated business, and like Robyn mentioned a few minutes ago, I mean, our product on the field is male. And so, I think that it's pretty common that most of the support would be male. So we're making progress, I think, in the National Football League in general. But I think outside of our walls, there's great progress being made. And I think that that's something that I think probably all of us are excited about, to see women take on great roles in corporate America, in government, in every place you go.
I was going to say the same thing, Nancy. I was at a conference on Friday, and there were just some incredibly talented females that were at this conference and speaking on the panels, and they are leading industries and businesses that are connected to sports, right? I was at a sports conference, right? But, they're CEOs, they're COOs, they're CROs, and they are leading Fortune 100 companies, right? They are at the top of the ladder, and they are kicking butt, right? And they bring, I think, to bear something that is different than male counterparts. And I think there are so many industries right now that do touch sports outside of just the teams themselves. And we're seeing a lot of female leadership at the head of those companies. And I think it's getting companies to think and act and operate and respond in different ways than what we've historically seen. And it's all for the good.
May I ask you just to take the opportunity to tell everyone about the creator of that conference and the one who hosts it every year, because she's a very dear friend of yours and ours.
Yes.
But we'd be remiss if we don't shout her out.
Another really incredible female. So Jessica Gelman, so the conference that I was speaking to is the Sloan MIT Sports Analytics Conference. And so Jessica and her co-lead Daryl Morey started that conference 17 years ago. And I think where the conference has evolved to is it is always and has been focused on sort of the data analytics. But I think what it has transpired to today in 2023 is how are these analytics being used across every spectrum? It used to be, how are you using analytics to improve baseball performance? How are you using analytics to improve basketball performance? And it was a lot of like the blocking and tackling and the sports side of it, the team side of it. And then it extended out to ticketing, and now it runs across everything. It's how are you measuring your content engagement? How are you measuring ticket sales? How are you using the analytics to decide how to recruit and using it for retention and employment and all of those things. And I would be remiss if I didn't say I think there was probably close to 40% of the speakers at the conference this past weekend were female.
And I think it's important to also note that Jessica, just herself, is framing this, how the industry has progressed. I mean, it's her work and her partner, Daryl Morey, and the other, people she's, surrounds herself with and that she's inspired herself. But I think as we're, trying to shout out, remarkable women, she's definitely one of them, and we're all very proud of her. I do want to say another thing that this is, particular to me and Nancy. One thing that brings me a lot of joy is that a lot of the coaches that I see bring women to their systems, they were born here, they developed here, and they leave us. And as they're building their teams, they're very open to hiring women. And I have to think that Nancy and I have some impact on that decision, because hopefully their experience working with us, and there are other women in the football operation as well, has inspired them to build teams that include more Nancys, for sure, and some more Robyns. So I find that, and then I also find that there are a lot of players that have a unabashed willingness to work with women, and who would be fine with women in performance roles or athletic training roles or equipment roles, whereas maybe in the past they weren't. But now these young men are more open-minded to what their staffs can look like and how they're made up.
I think that's true, and I think a lot of that comes from college football. I think in the college football environment, and if you watch college football at all, you'll see on the sidelines,
sure.
There's a lot of young women who are probably in their, PT programs or, any number of things. And so, we're getting our next generation of players that have been in the environment of having females around and, would be more open to it. And we'll probably see it in our future too. I think you need to be able to structurally be able to provide services for women to be involved, and from there, once you have a plan in place, you can get more people in, and
then
I
it
think
becomes
that's
organic after
I think that's our intention. I think that we really hope to do that going forward.
Yeah.
But it takes a little thought in this business.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to stay on this topic of inspiring women because, Nancy, in my research, I came across the piece that the NFL did with you last year for their Next Woman Up series.
Oh.
And you very briefly mention a woman named Judy Quimby, who I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is who lured you into the Patriots, and you called her a bit of a trailblazer in her own right here.
Well,
at that
I did.
time.
That is how I came to be here. That goes back to secretaries. I mean, she was my older sister's friend. And, you know, she was a secretary to who I was originally hired by, which is a great piece of history for the Patriots, Bucko Kilroy.
Oh, my.
And this gentleman, Bucko, who had been in the NFL and was our director of player personnel and became our general manager, and Judy was his secretary, and I do believe that was her actual title, secretary. And I came in to work for her as an assistant. And yeah, those were early days ago. Unfortunately, Judy isn't with us any longer,
sorry.
but she was a wise, good, smart girl. She could hold her own. Maybe one of the originals.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about some more women that you've all looked up to and kind of used as inspiration, role models to get to this place.
Can I just say last year we were at, I forget exactly what it was called, but Billie Jean King, she just rocked it, didn't she?
She did.
The Title IX
The
panel.
Title IX
yes.
event that we hosted.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, there was some great women on that panel.
Yeah, I think in many cases, I think there are so many women. It's hard to name. I think if I come from a family where my mom, decided to go back to school when we were growing up, and she's sort of, I'd like to describe her as a lifelong learner, and went back and got her master's degree as we were going through high school, and then went and got her doctorate. So I think I came from a foundation where, I had this person that surrounded me that just wanted more and wasn't afraid to say, nope, you can't do that, or there isn't time in the day, or you're too busy raising a family. And so, I look at my mom as somebody who from a very early point in my career gave me this notion that it doesn't matter, right? If you want something, just go after it and go get it.
I
and
think
she
acknowledging all moms like
yeah,
that.
I mean, she's written a book and she's got a published book, and so it just,
Nice.
those sorts of things, I think early on, as you just kind of plant these seeds in you of, yeah, you can do anything. And I have a young daughter, and when I think about what I want for her, I want her to do whatever it is that she wants to do, but I don't want her to ever feel as if she can't do something, and she's forging her own path. But I think it's, she can see in me and in my colleagues, she knows Robyn, she knows Jessica, she knows a lot of the women that I work with, she knows Allie who works with us, she sees that and she realizes there are women leading the business and leading businesses, and there's nothing that I think she would think is unstoppable.
So for me, as Nancy said, we're all going to acknowledge our mothers, but Mama G, my mom is, if anyone follows me on Instagram, you'll see that she and my father are like the leading actors of my Instagram page, because she's just so incredible. I mean, she barely graduated high school, and my father, has a JD and, advanced degrees, and she's still my first, I do go to my father for advice too. I don't want pops to feel left out, but she's the first source of, advice for me. She's very street smart. She's very, and anyone who knows me will not be surprised. She's very direct, to the point, straightforward, has very strong opinions and sticks by them, and usually she's right. She will, if this makes the cut, she will be very happy to hear that. But I need to be very honest. The inspiration is all around me. These two women inspire me. Alex, you inspire me. I learned a couple years ago from a young man I mentor and is so incredibly important to me. We're having a text conversation, and he said something, and I said, I'm so proud of you. You are our future, and you're our future, our leader of the future. And if this is the way you are, we're in a great place. And he wrote back, I'll never forget this text, Robyn, I hope that you can see me as a leader now. And I put down my phone, and I have never stopped thinking about that comment. And so now my best teachers, those who are guiding me through this life, which is sometimes hard, not just at work, are young people. I listen, I learn, I know that they're leaders now. They might not have the same experience as some of us, and I think experience counts too. But I take inspiration from them as well, and so I'm always looking around for my inspiration.
Well, just going off that, I'm sure you've all mentored so many women coming up. I'd love to hear just a couple main key pieces of advice you would give to any woman looking to be in a place you're at one day.
I think if there's any advice that I would give to somebody wanting to be in, within sports or in our positions, it's just dig in and come to the day, with an openness and an enthusiasm that, to use Robyn's words, like helps inspire others. I think we are lifted by one another when we see people doing really great work. And, I often say, like, I want to be inspired by somebody. And then I turn around and you might be doing something. I'm like, I got to keep up my game, right? I got to keep up my game. And so I think a lot of it is, we're in, to use a sports metaphor, we work for a professional football team and a professional soccer team, but it's, go out on that field, come to work every day, and perform as if, as if it's a championship game. And if you can do that day in and day out and consistently and at a really high level and grow from your mistakes, right? We're not all perfect. We're not all going to get it right. But be willing to grow from your mistakes, take some critique and some criticism, and then learn from it and evolve. I think anybody that, if we can be in our roles as long as we have, but we're not doing them the same way we were when we started. We're not still transcribing written word, right? I'm not still, setting up, soccer activations. Like, we've all had to take on more and do it differently. And I think that I would just say, come ready to go and be ready to be a team player, and to be a captain, be a leader. Again, the sports metaphors, but be somebody that your teammates can depend upon. And I think, if you're somebody that your teammates can depend upon, that's noticeable, and what you do will be recognized and rewarded.
I don't think I could have added anything really to that. I was going to, say, be aware of your surroundings, know when your opportunities are right, be kind to people, and, you'll get it back tenfold. And, the opportunities are probably there. And just approach them professionally, and it's for you. You're the one that's going to gain by it. And, it's been great for us. But I think that's because, day to day, you're aware of your surroundings, and people really respect you because you respect them.
So my advice for young people that want to get in the industry, and it's not specific to women, it's the same advice as I give to young men. And it's the advice that I actually give to 12-year-olds, and it's the advice that I give to 50-year-olds who, how do I be better? And that is, your job, your priority in life is to create relationships. I mean, that means that if you're at the grocery store and you're paying for your food, look at the person who's helping you in the eye, look at their name card, talk to them by their name, remember something about them so that when you're there again the next time, there's a relationship that you've established. Now there's a discount on a product that you were supposed to get two in order to get the discount. They're going to remind you, go back and get another one. I mean, I know that that's like a silly example, but the most important thing that you can do in life is be kind to others, make an impression on them, learn what matters to them, and create a relationship. Because who knows, 10, 15 years later when you're looking for something and you've created a relationship with someone, they could be your advocate. They could be the person that helps you get there, and vice versa. So that's really the advice I give to everyone, and I think it's really applicable to young women that want to get into this industry. And then, I just feel like you don't have to be in sports today when you graduate college or you graduate graduate school. you can go and get a lot of experience that ultimately can be valuable to a sports role. I came into, I mean, if you had told me that, while I'm watching Project Runway, that I was going to, have a significant role at the Patriots organization, let alone the NFL, if you told me that 30 years ago, I'd be like, you are out of your mind. It wasn't even in my trajectory of where I thought I would be. But I think that the reason why Jonathan, who I interviewed with the first time, and then it was, 6 days and 13 hours of interviews that, I got to meet more people. But what he saw in me was a skill set and a set of experience that he said to himself, that could actually be valuable. That could actually help her do things. It's not the same old, same old. And so I really encourage young people, not everyone's going to get, their dream job out of school. In fact, very few of us do. So go and do cool stuff. So glad I didn't just swear. It was coming out. Cool stuff, and gain that experience and build that repertoire of skills and knowledge, and then come bring that to a sports team or an entertainment company or whatever you want to do. That's going to set you apart. And as women, we still need that little special sauce, that little extra something something. That's what it is, in my opinion, in the professional world.
Well, I've been through like 2 generations of women in my career. And, for my daughter, an adult daughter now, and I see what opportunities she's had in her career. And I'm so proud of how far she's come along and had advancement, and looked at what my career was like and how incremental and little tiny baby steps at times. And, she was more powerful because of it. And she had grown up as a Patriot. And yet, our careers aren't anywhere similar, but yet we're both women in business. And I'm just so proud of how she's had to stand her ground in many different ways in her life. And because of it, she's reaping the benefits of it. But I feel like it was because she had this opportunity.
Well, she had a great role model.
To
Yes,
see.
of course.
Well, I don't necessarily take credit for it that way, but she got to see a working mom and how working moms have to claw a little bit harder sometimes.
I'll leave you ladies with one last question. As women in sports, as mothers, what does International Women's Day mean to each of you? And how would you like to celebrate its message 365 days a year?
Wow.
Yeah, I think, when you think about International Women's Day, Women's History Month, I think it really is about just sort of the acknowledgement of everybody who has come before us. Nancy referenced Billie Jean King, but those women who have forged the way, paved the path, so that we can be doing what we're doing today. And I think really to celebrate it on a 365-day-a-year basis, there's intentionality to it, and at the same time, it really needs to just sort of become second nature, right? If we're thinking about it too much, then it means we haven't, we're not there yet. And so I think it's celebrating one another, recognizing each other, appreciating each other, being able to critique each other. I think a big part of, the women that have come before us, like, they've overcome challenges. They had to fight against really hard things. And so I think being able to have an honest, open, and Robyn and I had them for many years, we have open and honest conversations. We don't always, see eye to eye on everything. But if I can appreciate her perspective and she can appreciate mine and we can come to a consensus, like, I think that's the 365-day a year. It's bringing different voices to bear, but learning from one another, and just appreciating what everybody has to offer.
Being that cheerleader for each other, because there are days that we need to vent to one another. And, it's so cleansing, and it's so heartwarming, because I think you'd like to wish it isn't, but yet, we need each other so much. We really do, and it's great when you walk into work and other females kind of understand different things that might be going on in your life outside of the building, and that's really important because generally women have two jobs.
Right.
They don't stop at the end of the day when they get in their car and drive out of here. You're going home and you're still probably, again, you'd like to think that this isn't so gender driven, but I think for most working moms it is. You still have to go home and maybe do dinner and throw a load of laundry in and maybe get the snacks ready for the next day and check on the homework, and it doesn't stop. So I think that's what we love about it, is we're kind of driven by hard work.
Yeah.
And you reap great rewards.
I don't really think about, in my world, every day is International Women's Day. Every day.
International
I-
Women's
That's
Day.
nice.
I just celebrate women all the time, and the great women around me, the great women that inspire me. I'd be remiss because I'm inspired by men too, but this is the focus on women. And I was just at an event last week, and no men were allowed. It was a purely women event, and during the day I told my mother about it. I was being honored at the event, and my mom said, "Oh, I want to go." And we just sat there. At one point we were standing around and we went to a chair and we just sat there and we just said, "Will you look around us? How lucky are we?" And here's my mother who's, older, and it just made me feel great that she was so inspired by, and she felt so great to be around what was generally a lot younger women. And there were women who were clearly non-binary. So forgive me, there were individuals there that were non-binary. There were women there that, identified as, LGBT. There were women who were very feminine. There were women who, were all business. And my mother was just aglow all evening in celebration of women. So for me, that's my everyday. And
I believe she was probably aglow because she's so proud of you.
oh, well, thank you very much. We like being together. That was fun too. But I felt the same thing. I look around me and I see these women doing such remarkable work. And what I first think to myself is, how can I help them? How can I actually support them and lift them and help them achieve what they're trying to achieve? And then my second thing is I wish I could be friends with them. So I'm inspired by women every day. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. This has been great. It's always so fun sharing our
is.
stories, and we've got so much history together.
I know.
And
Long
hopefully there's a lot of, girls like yourself and those around us that are making their own friendships and history. And 20 years from now, they'll be talking about the three of us who were sitting here.
Yeah, well, I mean, just looking at,
talking
we're
about
sitting
them.
here in front of a group of our own, our colleagues, right? And more than 50% of the people sitting in front of us are women, right? And so, and you're all here to support this conversation today and to help, sort of take an engagement opportunity and make it into something like, thank you, right? Thank you for all that you guys do for us and will continue to do, so.
And thank the men in our lives that made
Absolutely,
it so
always.
lovely
Always.
to be women.
Absolutely.
All of the allies and advocates.